to animals. My name is Shannon. I'm an animal intuitive and sensitive and animal communicator here at animallovelanguages.com. And this is Pearl, for those of you who are watching the YouTube version of our podcast, our vlogcast, I guess. He is my 23-year-old feathered sidekick. He's been with me since he was 5 weeks old, and he never misses an episode, even when it conflicts with his contractually stipulated neck feather scratching sessions, right? Okay. And here on Let's Talk with Animals, we are always looking for new information about what it's like to experience interspecies communication. And so we're trying to de-woo it, if you will, to demystify it, to open up the wonderful world of animal communication to everyone, all species, including the human species, including the human animal. So this morning, all the way from India, we have Akshaya Kawle. And I know I didn't do that perfectly. She practiced. She gave me a little tutorial before. I actually was just sharing with Akshaya that I lived in Mumbai for about 6 months at around 2006, 2007. And it's like a really soft spot for just all of my memories and everything about it, and the absolute stunning beauty of the part of the country that I was living in. And so I'm really grateful to be able to share your work. You have so much going on and hordes of eager students. And I love the simplicity with which you share the work that you do with the world. And so I'm really excited to share your work here on the show as well. Even though we're speaking with you at a time in your journey where, you know, you're professional, you are able to kind of tune in and tap in on demand when somebody needs you. And yet here on the show, we have a lot of aspiring animal communicators. We have a lot of newbie animal communicators. We have a lot of what I would call inquiring, maybe prospective animal communicators that are just intrigued, maybe don't even think that they can do it. And so I always like to invite our guests to just take us back to the beginning of your journey and kind of share how this unfolded for you. And we'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Sure. First of all, Shannon, you said my name perfectly, so thank you so
Oh,
much for
thank
that.
you thank you for letting me know.
And thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure and an honor to be invited by communicators across the globe and sharing our stories, because I feel even though we do pretty much the same kind of work, there's so much of diversity in what we do, and there's so much of learning from these communications that we have. And since it's such a personal practice, each one of us get a very different flavor on the table, and that's the beauty of it, that it's a personal practice and we can learn from each other. So it's always a pleasure to be interacting with other communicators and people who take an interest in what we do. So thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure
It's my
being here.
honor.
So
It's
my
my
journey
honor.
began, thank you so much. My journey began, I think, when I was about 3, 4 years old, as someone who took great interest in animals. So I grew up in a family of 16 people. We used to live in a joint family, and I was the youngest member of the family. So when everyone used to have their afternoon siestas, I obviously didn't want to sleep, didn't want to nap. So I used to go out and I used to play with the cats outside our building in our apartment complex, or what we would typically call as veranda. And that's where my journey began, because they were my confidants, they were my friends. I didn't have a lot of people my age around me at that time, apart from my school. So they were my friends. And I remember explicitly having two-way conversations with these cats. And as I grew older, of course, it all became a figment of my imagination for me. And I never thought a lot about it. It was only much later, in 2008, actually, we had our first animals home as companion animals. And that's where my journey with animals began. In 2014, December, I got married. And in 2015, I took a year-long sabbatical from work. I'm originally a communication skills consultant with the corporates. And I used to train middle and high level management on communication skills, focusing on nonverbal communication, presentation skills, and public speaking. So now, so to say, my work has kind of just expanded from communication with humans to now also animals and humans. And that's how I look at my work and what I do now. So in that year-long sabbatical, I had a lot of time to engage with things that I like to do. And that's when I came across this beautiful video by Anna Breitenbach, another senior communicator, where she was speaking with uh, now Spirit, then Diablo, the black leopard. And that just instantly took me back to my memories of talking to the cat. And as synchronicity would have it, I don't want to call it a coincidence, but the
Yeah.
synchronicity of it all was such that my first animal friend was a jet black cat with the same kind of beautiful eyes that Spirit had. So it just took me back to my days as a child when I would spend my afternoon with this cat, speaking to her and telling her how my day was, and in my head the cat answering to me as well. So that's how my journey began. And I intuitively started speaking with my dogs who used to be at my mom's house because my husband and I didn't have animal companions at that time. And it became easier for me that way because I could cross check with my mom and get my validations at that time. So I would call her up and ask her, okay, have they eaten this today or are they doing this today? And it got easier that way. I also used to foster a lot for abandoned and rescued animals by an NGO that I'm associated with. So I started using this skill even with my fosters. And I saw a great deal of positive change in their behavior. Animals who were absolutely scared, wouldn't trust any human, would immediately want to come and bite, suddenly had a shift in their personality, like a 180-degree shift. And they would let me, put my hand in their mouth and coax their medicines down, or they would just allow me to do absolutely anything because I would respect what they would ask for. And that's, I think, that was the turning point in my life as a communicator, because that's when I realized that even though as humans we come from a very good intention with rescue animals and we want to do the best by them, so many times what we feel is their greatest good is probably not what they think their greatest good is. And at such times, it is better to rely on what they feel their greatest good is rather than trying to force our opinions on them. Because that's how they learn to trust us, that we give them the right of being an equal and not constantly look at ourselves as the caregivers or the superior species in the context of, I will take care of you. They don't need that. They can take care of themselves provided we give them that right to do that. So from 2015 to 2017, it was just a personal thing for me. I never intended on doing this professionally. By the end of 2017, that's when my friends and family started to get to know that I do this, and my numbers started getting circulated, and people started calling me at all odd hours at 2 and 3 in the morning. And that's when I decided, okay, it's time I put some kind of structure to this, otherwise it's going to get out of hand. And I remember uh, December of 2017, Shannon, I had done about over 250 communications just as practice. And I still have a journal where I maintain my communication. I still have those dated and with the feedback, because I was doing it for in exchange of feedback to get better at the skill. And that's when I thought, no, I'll charge a nominal fee so that there is some kind of streamlining to the work that I'm doing, and I don't drain myself out by constantly just going on and on and on with this. And I honestly thought once I start charging, no one's going to come to me because nobody
Mhm.
wants to probably pay money for this. But that didn't happen, fortunately. People kept coming, and that's how I gradually started doing it professionally. And since I came from a learning and development background, 6 months later, when a group of rescuers reached out and said, "Why don't you teach us?" That came to me very naturally, because that's what I'm passionate about the most, the teaching part of it, because that's what I've been doing for the past 13 years of my life anyway. So then that happened, and that's where my journey began in 2018. So I've been doing this as a professional since 2018. It's been 4 years now, but I'm doing it consciously. I've been doing it since 2015. But I think I've always been doing it. And I was very open to the idea of the fact that animals and nature can talk to us.
What a beautiful, beautiful unfolding. And I'm sure it, moving through it from the front end maybe didn't feel so intuitively guided. It didn't feel
Yes,
so continuous and contiguous in terms of, everything that came before making sense a little bit later on. But looking back with that hindsight, it really does feel like there is serendipity, but not coincidence. I loved what you
absolutely.
said about that. And I really want to encourage you, if you're listening to Akshaya's story, to think about, or if you're watching us on YouTube, to think about your own journey and think about where, the moment when your interest in being able to communicate across species boundaries, when did that start? You know, do you have a buried memory? Do you have faint recollections or maybe vivid memories of your best friend, and that best friend came from a different species? And think about, and drop into your heart space and feel for what quality was there that made that relationship so special, that really that your heart would just sing when you were in the company of your animal friend. Or it could be an animal you're sharing your life with now, and consider whether there might be information and love and encouragement flowing to you from that animal. And maybe your mind isn't really understanding how to receive it and process it yet, but maybe in your heart, it's there. And that's the work that we're doing. Because, and I love how you said when you were starting to realize that your schedule was getting a little crazy and your phone was ringing at hours you needed to be resting, and you thought, what, let me take this seriously. Let me honor the importance of the work that I'm doing and put some structure around it, and consider how I can best serve these families, these interspecies families who are reaching out to me for help. Because there's no reason. I hear this all the time. Oh, well, I don't want to do it professionally, or maybe people are part of religious communities in different areas around the world, and maybe there isn't as much openness as you experienced in your community when you started sharing the work that you do now. But consider that there are all kinds of reasons why you might want to enter into this work. And it doesn't have to be going public or going pro. It can. I love that the rescue organization reached out to you, and how forward thinking and open minded these people are. And I feel like it's got to be something in your personality as well, though, which is kind of a thread in your story. Your openness invites the openness of others. And so, those of you who are listening, you may want to reach out to Akshaya. You may want to consider, what are some different ways that I could honor the animals who wish to speak with me without having to change the whole course of my life. I
Right.
love that your profession prior to starting your animal communication business or work, if you will, is so complementary to the work that you do now. So consider, what areas of, as you're listening, what areas of your life might be subtly tapping you on the shoulder and saying, this could be a really good fit. This is a skill set I already have, and I could apply my passion for animals. And it doesn't have to be, we're always looking for these big booming voices from the sky, or these big shifts. And, it can be really subtle. And in fact, animal communication often is. And I'd love for you to share a little bit more, if you're open to it, what it feels like, because there's a lot of curiosity around that. How do the messages arrive? How do you know you're that I don't even love to say that you're doing it. How do you know it's
Yeah.
happening and you're
Happening.
you're participating in that conversation, especially when you don't know that you're participating? How can you start to pick up on it?
Yeah. And I think this is one of the most commonly asked questions, not only by people who are just starting out, but also by people who are doing this for some time and still are trying to figure out a way to understand what is real versus what is their projection. Because I think that is one of the biggest obstacles a lot of communicators face. Personally, for me, and this is something that I even tell people who attend my courses, is that learn to be a little shameless when it comes to animal communication, because your conscious mind is going to constantly keep telling you that this is just your imagination, since you are putting your conscious mind in such an uncomfortable position. And for years and years we've been taught to think logically, think within the box, within the structure of what is tangible, what is quantifiable. And unfortunately, there is not a lot of tangibility to what we do, or there is not instant tangibility, at least. Yes, you can see the animal respond a certain way to the communication if they are unwell, or a behavioral change, but that comes over time. It may not be as quick as in a verbal communication that we have with humans. So the first thing, on a lighter note, I tell them, be a little shameless. It's okay. This is a safe space for all of us to let down our inhibitions. Nobody is going to judge us because we're all in the same boat. So be a little shameless. And even if your conscious mind tells you that, hey, this is your projection, I mean, what's the worst that would happen? Your partner who you're practicing with would simply tell you that, no, my animal isn't like that. Like, that's the worst thing that can happen in your starting phases where you're just practicing. But if you don't do that, you're going to miss out on an opportunity to actually get a valid feedback from your partner, wherein you have thought that it's a figment of your imagination, you've not shared it, only to later realize that, oh my God, this was what it was, and I didn't say it to my partner. And also, for us to check the validity, whether it's right or wrong, you need to have an answer first. If you don't have an answer, where are you going to check whether it's the right answer or the wrong answer? So focus on having an answer, then go ahead to check whether it's right or wrong. That's one. Second thing, for me personally, uh, I make it very casual, because if I have a lot of structure to it, in the sense of I need to sit here, or I need to do it this way or that way, I will distance myself from it. If I make it very pure and pious, then the likelihood of me integrating it into my life like it is today is very low. So for me, talking to animals, talking to plants, talking to landscapes, any other element of nature comes as naturally as I would speak to my husband, my friend, my mom, my dad, my in-laws. So there is no difference between talking to a human companion versus talking to an animal or nature companion that you may have. And that's why, for me, when I speak to them, again, it's a personal experience, it's different for every communicator. But for me, it's like an internal dialogue that I have with my animal, that I ask a question and I instantaneously verbalize the answer that the animal is sharing with me. Initially, when you start doing this, yes, you may feel as though you are making up the answers. But as you go ahead in your journey, you practice with a few friends and family who can give you feedback, you realize that even in the whole idea of making it up or guessing, you're actually verbalizing what the animal wishes to share with you. So my focus really is always on getting information, doesn't matter how you get it, rather than constantly focusing only on right and wrong, right and wrong, right and wrong, because that's where most of us get blocked. I get blocked because I'm scared of getting a wrong answer. If that fear is taken away from me, it doesn't matter, right? Then I can just receive openly whatever the animal wishes to share with me. So for me, it's like an internal dialogue, and over time I have also learned that the quicker I verbalize those answers, the more authentic they are. The more time I wait, it's like an open invitation to my brain to, hey, come make up a logical answer that I will find comfortable sharing with my human. Because as human beings, we are trained to not respond to questions that are not directed towards us. So if I intend to talking to my dog and I direct a question to my dog, the likelihood of my brain wanting to answer it is naturally lowered, because the question is not directed towards me at all. It's when I wait and think, oh my God, I need an answer that makes sense. That's like a subtle invite to my brain, okay, now I need your help to make sense. And then and only then will my brain want to answer it. But otherwise, most times, my brain will not want to answer it because it's not intended towards me. And that's how we are trained. Like if you and I are speaking, very rarely will a third person just butt in the conversation or start answering a
Mhm.
question directed towards me, because that's not what we do generally.
This is so true, and I love how you're helping your students to identify the little tells, if you will, if the mind says, "Oh no, it needs to make sense," or what if I'm talking to someone else's animal and they're concerned and the answer doesn't make sense to them, and it's like you're kind of talking over the animal. You're not even. It's like asking a question, and like you said, and then giving them like a list of possible options versus just allowing them to respond. So, when I started my animal communication journey, I kind of treated it like being in school because that is the structure that we're given. We're given, and the focus is very much on verbal, heard conversation. It's not about the other intuitive. Honey, you're blowing out mommy's eardrums again. Intuit, he loves mornings. It's morning here, it's evening there, but of course, since these are pre-recorded, we have to work out the scheduling. But it's so interesting because so often along my journey, when I started, I thought, oh, I'll just enroll in a school and I'll do
Hmm.
my one big classroom and then I'll graduate and then I'll, and I learned very quickly what you were sharing earlier, that there are so many different ways to experience this. It's very deeply personal and there's different ways to teach it. And so I've lost count. I've studied with Anna Breitenbach. I'm now probably on my, I don't know, my seventh or eighth teacher. I'm just so curious about different ways to experience it, keep opening up myself, because it is really a life journey as well as something I want to be able to offer reliably to others, to be able to kind of tune in on demand. But really recognizing that so many of my teachers have said it's the information that it's kind of like an aha moment or a light bulb goes on. It's the stuff that your mind couldn't make up if it tried. It's the good stuff. Like you're waiting for something that doesn't make sense in your mind, but somehow it makes sense in your gut. You're like, your gut is like, oh man, I never thought of that, but that, and then your brain will pop out with something stupid like, and that makes perfect sense, but in a different way, because here we're receiving. Now, some people describe how they get a lot of verbal, even though, it's a subtle thing, um, the information may come to us in the form of words, but it's not coming through the mental pathway. So, I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you personally experience, because your journey has been so organic. And
Yes.
so being able to return back to those earliest experiences, has that helped you to be able to were you able to kind of remember back to it? Do you feel like you get do you have conversations where you're very much, how do they, clairaudience versus clairsentence? I get them mixed up. I'm supposed to sound like an expert. I'm like, I just say the four clairs because I half the time can't remember which goes with seeing, hearing, knowing, sensing.
Yeah. So for me, my dominant clair right now is claircognizance, which is just the thoughts and the intuition. When I started out formally, when I started learning formally, and like you said, even I have learned with 5 different communicators, still continue learning, because that's an amazing journey to understand how everybody teaches and different things that I could learn from everyone for my own personal journey. So when I did start out formally, I remember I was more of uh, clairvoyant, which is visuals, and uh, clairvoyance and clairaudience, which is listening.
Hearing,
I would
yes.
get messages uh, which were a mix. So I would get a pop of like image and then a few words sometimes, or sometimes complete sentences. Because, like I mentioned, it's more of an internal dialogue for me where I'm asking a question and I'm verbalizing the answer that I receive. So the animal may or may not share the answers in those sentences, but that's how my uh, body, my intuition, my energy is translating it for me, what the animal is sharing with me. However, now I've reached a point where these are just thoughts for me. I can't really differentiate whether I receive a visual or audio message or a feeling. Also, very rarely do I actually receive very strong feelings. For me, these are just thoughts in my head. But with practice now, I know that they're coming from the animal, even though there may not be a real tangible difference between my own thoughts and what the animal is sharing. And just to go back to what you shared, a few people do say that, it's like a aha moment where your mind can't make it up. But for me personally, so many times it's not an aha moment, it's not a eureka moment. It's something that is so innate, so natural, so subtle, like you said, that it's very difficult to like really differentiate between if I'm thinking of it or if the animal is sharing it with me. And that is because I believe that this is the most natural way of communication we all know as all species, irrespective of humans, animals, plants, because it's given to us by Mother Nature. And as a mother, she will not differentiate saying, okay, I'll give it to birds and I won't give it to humans, or I'll give it to Shannon and I won't give it to Akshaya. She's a mother. She will give everything to everyone equally. But unfortunately, for us humans, we detach ourselves from that skill because, again, it doesn't fit into our logical framework and focus more on the verbal communication part of it. And yet we retain that skill. We just need to flex that intuitive muscle a bit to re- start again. But we are always doing it, right? Like so many times you'll think of a person and that person calls you up and you'll say, hey, I was just thinking about you, what a coincidence. But that is telepathy,
Mm-hmm.
that is the way we communicate. So many times when I'm craving to eat something and I go back to my mom's house, she would have cooked that for me even without knowing that I'm going to come home. And I'll be like, oh my God, I was just craving to eat this and you have made it for me. Or my husband and I would complete each other's sentences. Or the way a mother or any parent knows what their child wants, even without the child explicitly verbalizing what they want, are all instances of this beautiful connection that we have. With us communicators, we've learned to put a word or terminology on it that, okay, this is animal communication or intuitive communication. But with so many other people, it just exists. They may not necessarily say it is intuitive or telepathic. They would probably say it's by chance or guess or
Mm-hmm.
coincidence, but it's there. It happens with everyone.
And I have such a beautiful, very quick story about that. When my tortoise Malty was a year old, she wandered off the lawn and went missing. And I was not an animal communicator at the time. I hired animal communicators. I had no I mean, I was very much, and I was a freelance writer. That's what I did. That's what I always wanted to do. I just wasn't on my radar. And this experience completely reshaped my trajectory because the first communicator I normally worked with was not available. She was in the middle of a massive, difficult move. But so the most she told me was Malty has headed north. She's not far. And then I hired another animal communicator that I worked with very intensely. But the outcome of it was basically she went north and she's not far. Then, because I had a pretty strong social media presence because of my writing and this guy right here, one of my Facebook friends who lived in India started messaging me and saying, have you found her yet? Have you found her yet? Look to the north. And the day that I found her, which was day 6, it had been raining heavily. There was a period we later called the Memorial Day floods here in the US. And she's the size of like, my mouse, and so out here in all of this intense monsoon like weather. And so the day I found her, he had messaged me and he said, you will find her today. Look to the north, look under the bushes at a neighbor's house. And I kid you not, because I was so demoralized, I went out, I walked about 2 blocks to the right, dead north, under a flowering bush. There's my little girl. And so I messaged him back because, we're just like casual Facebook friends. We both love animals. I said, what the heck? Like, dude, what are you like? Did you do this? And he was like, no, it's just kind of a thing I have, and he's in catering. And so, I just, for those of you who are listening, it's like, this is such an enrichment to your life. It's about realizing, I love that what you shared about Mother Earth and saying, we're all equally blessed, and we're all connected, and it's about remembering that we're a part of, we belong here too. There's so much adversity in our world today, and looking at what humans are doing to animals. It's like, what are we doing for animals? How can we reconnect? Because the reconnection is where the healing begins for all of us. We all love this planet. I'm sure Mars is fantastic, but I personally love Earth, and I want to stay here, and I mean, I like the opportunity to go if you want, but I love it here, and I really think that we can do great things with our animal friends. And so that really brings us, we're kind of at time. I know your time as a listener, as a watcher, is valuable as well. I want to respect that. I want to respect your time, Akshaya. But I would love to hear how people can get in touch with you, how they can work with you, how they can study with you, if that's of interest to them.
Yes. So you can reach out to me on www.animalcommunication.in. That's my website. And through the website, you can also find links to all my social media. I have a YouTube channel with over 300 videos. So if anyone wants to just get a taste of what I do or look for free resources, you can find it there. On Facebook and Instagram, I'm at Animal Communication by Akshaya. But you can all find it on the website. So it's
on your
one
website.
stop to everything that how you can reach out to me would be available on my website. Yes.
Perfect. And I also you have mentoring too, right?
Yes, I do. So I have a short course, a foundation course. I have a 1-month mentoring program. I also have a book. I'm the only Indian author to have actually published. Yes, I'm the only Indian author to have published a book on animal communication. And I'm very proud of it. And it's available internationally on Amazon. So yes, if that's something that you're in.
It's
Animal
weird.
Communication.
Okay, I've been all over your website and I did not see that for some reason, which which is totally, maybe I just got transfixed by something else, but fantastic. That's absolutely brilliant. And that's something else I love to do, is I read all the books by other animal communicators. I'm constantly, I mean, we are a community, and we learn from each other continuously. It's one of the best ways to continue to be open, to remain humble and honoring of our place in this, truly, okay, I just lost my train of thought, because sometimes my heart is just like, and my eardrums just kind of take over. But I want to encourage you, if you're listening, if you're watching, if you have questions for me or for Akshaya, please let us know. If you have a friend who enjoys these kinds of conversations, please forward the podcast. You don't have to be aspiring to benefit greatly from hearing the wonderful stories that are shared each week on Let's Talk to Animals. These are some of the best ways that you can just start tuning in with your own companion animals and start reconnecting your intuition, so that instead of a major medical issue, you catch those early intuitive, those hunches that maybe, just like what you were saying, you're thinking of someone and they're going to call you, or you're thinking of something you want to eat and your mom makes it. It's like, if you're thinking about your animal and how are they well, and it's like 99% yeah, but there's this one little thing, and it's like, you can just start to tune in and you can learn, you can deepen your relationship and your connection and feel closer and feel more supported and befriended in your life. I also would love to invite those of you who are interested in a little free 5-day crash course, so to speak, an adventure. I have a 5-day free animal communication camp on animallovelanguages.com under Learn With Me. You can find a 4-part intuitive pet parent series that's designed specially. It's also free for pet parents. And most importantly, you can find links to all of our podcast and vlogcast episodes so that you never miss an episode. Hopefully you'll give us 5 stars or 50 stars, Pearl suggests, if that's available in your area. And Akshaya, again, it's an honor and a delight. I'm going to let you go because I know it's late where you are and you have carved out volunteering your time to share your story here. And we're very, very grateful. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Shannon. Thank you so much.
Missing your beautiful country and hoping I can one day, maybe I'll even get to meet you in person. Who knows?
Absolutely.
Maybe I'll get to come and take one of your courses. That would be so much fun. All righty, everyone. Bye for now. Check back with us next week for another wonderful, fresh episode. And please know you have our hearts. So have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.